Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of Retro Recipe Rewind. On today's episode, we're rewinding all the way back to the days of the Vikings and making a soup and bread recipe. This cookbook is inspired from research done on the lives and diets of the Vikings, along with archaeological data. And now, time for a history lesson. Who really were the Vikings? When you hear the word Viking, is this what you picture? Well, it's absolutely incorrect. But more on that a little bit later. The Viking Age ran from around 793 AD to about 1066 when the raiding stopped. Not because they were conquered, but because the political climate of Europe switched and raiding became less profitable. The Norse people explored, farmed, and traded all the way from Africa to what we now know as Canada. Now, we've all heard about Columbus, but it was actually a Norse explorer from Iceland named Leif Erikson who was the first European to step foot in North America. Around 1000 AD, he landed in what is now known as Newfoundland. He named the area he landed on Vinland, spent a winter there, and left, never to return. It wasn't until 4 centuries later that Columbus appeared in 1492. Forever changing history. The Norse also became part of English monarchy, both in person and through blood, all the way up until the arrival of William the Conqueror. So let's give credit where it's due and make these two recipes based on their diet. You will need First, preheat your oven to 450 degrees. Now it's time to make some buttermilk. Slice and juice 1 lemon. Use 1 tablespoon per 1 cup of milk. So because I have 2 cups of milk, I'm going to use 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. Then stir it together and set it aside until you're ready to use it. Next, cut a fairly large piece of summer sausage. Then, after taking off the wrapping, begin cutting it into smaller chunks. Be sure to cut enough that you end up with 1 whole cup. Next, it's onion time. You're going to cut up 3 onions and make sure that your knife is sharp. This way you can avoid all of those unsightly tears. Now that the onions are done, it's time to start peeling the turnip and the carrots. I like to keep a bowl underneath the vegetables. This catches all the peelings and keeps everything neat and tidy. Now I know most people would just throw away their vegetable scraps, but don't do it. You can take your scraps, place them into an airtight freezer bag, and put them in the freezer to make delicious vegetable stock later. Continue adding scraps until the bag is full, and you can leave it in the freezer for up to 6 months. Now that everything is peeled, dice up your 3 carrots, and your turnip. Then place everything in the same bowl as your onions. If you bought a whole chicken, break it down into 8 pieces. Please remember, after cutting up chicken, to wash and sanitize your cutting board. Once your cutting board is thoroughly sanitized, add 2 tablespoons of butter into a large pan. Once the butter has melted down enough, add your chicken in. Because of the size of my chicken, I ended up having to brown it in 2 parts. Time to start the bread. To a sifter, add in 2 cups of wheat flour and 1 cup of unbleached flour. Begin sifting everything together very slowly. This way you won't cause a flour mess all over the kitchen. Once I was about 3/4 of the way through the flour, I added in the baking powder and the salt. Then continue to sift it all together until everything was in the bowl. Go back and flip over your chicken to see a beautiful golden brown. Remember, brown food tastes good. Now we can go back to the bread. Add in your 1 cup of summer sausage and your 1 cup of cheddar cheese. I use just a little bit more cheese. I love cheese. Stir it together until thoroughly combined. Make sure to break up any clumps that you see so that the cheese is evenly distributed through the bread. Next, make a well in the center of your mixture. In the well, begin pouring your buttermilk. Be careful when doing this. I poured in my buttermilk in stages. I would pour, then mix. This way, I was able to ensure that there were no dry spots left and that the dough wasn't too runny. After mixing the dough, let it rest and go switch out your chicken. Afterwards, grease a cast iron skillet or an insulated bread pan and place your dough inside. To be more historically accurate, I used a little bit of lard to grease my pan, but you can also use butter or any other type of oil that you deem fit. Whatever you do, don't forget to scrape down the sides of the bowl. Once all of your dough is inside of your pan, smooth it out so the entire surface is evenly coated. Then place it in your preheated oven for a 10-minute rise. While your bread begins to bake, take your chicken pieces and place them inside of a pot with thyme, some salt, and all of your vegetables. Then add a bottle of your beer to the pot. If your chicken and your pot are large, you will need a bottle and a half. Bring the pot up to a boil, then cover, drop the heat, and simmer. Then go back to the oven and lower the temperature down to 375 and cook the bread for an additional 30 minutes. So while everything is left to stew, let's find out, why did the Vikings get such a bad reputation? Let's dispel one myth. Not all Norse people were called Vikings. The original Norse word is pronounced
Vikinger.
and spelled like this. The word in Old Norse did mean pirate or raider, and these raids were only done by a small percentage of the population. However, just because of this small group, an entire population of people from Scandinavia were classified under the term Vikings. I wonder where I've seen logic like this before. However, I digress. To be honest, the Norse were not only invaders who pillaged and left, many stayed in the areas that they had raided, accepting different religions and intermarrying within the community. At the beginning of their era, the Norse were free farmers, fishermen, and traders. Local chiefs would settle disputes, but for the most part, they saw everyone as equal. It wasn't until later, at the end of the Viking Age, that powerful kings and rich landowners came into play. Now let's get back to the recipe. Our bread is out of the oven and it smells delicious. The stew is bubbling away and just about ready to be plated. So let's get everything into a bowl and onto a plate so we can get to the tasting. So first I tried the soup, and if you can tell by my face, I was pleasantly surprised that it was really delicious. I personally hate the taste of beer, but because it had sat cooking down for so long, it took out a lot of the bitterness of the stout. However, if the taste of the beer is still too much for you, I would suggest using a half a cup of chicken stock to cut it down, and it will make it a lot more palatable. I totally recommend you making this dish. It's delicious. Next up, I tried the bread by itself. And you guys, warm, cheesy, wholesome goodness. I had to do my happy dance. It was so good. The cheese kept the inside nice and moist, and the summer sausage added to the savoriness. I don't even eat bread often, but I will be making this again. Thank you so much for tuning into the third episode of Retro Recipe Rewind. Make sure to follow me on all my social media. Links will be in the description below. Every week we'll be investigating a brand new cookbook to find out, what were people really eating in the past? On my Instagram, there'll be some behind the scenes, some polls to find out what you would like to see, and in the future, some giveaways, so stay tuned for all of that. Remember, hit the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and even share with family and friends if you enjoyed what you saw. Be sure to leave me some comments in the comment section. And if you so happen to make a recipe that you've seen on the channel, send it to me via email, and I'll feature you at the end of one of the episodes. Until next time, signing off for Retro Recipe Rewind.